Hey man, welcome to the podcast. For those that don't know you, Matt is a project instructor, a Squire project instructor, and you've got your own coaching company, which is
Ignition Year.
what?
Ignition Year Coaching.
Uh-huh. And you are a former law enforcement officer?
Yep. Yeah. I did just over 10 years with the sheriff's office in Idaho.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you ended up getting out of that and then teaching stuff, right? Teaching tactics.
Yeah.
That
So
was your business?
I did 5 years on the SWAT team as an entry guy, and then
Mm-hmm.
a couple years with US Marshal's office. And then in 2013, opened up like a big indoor outdoor training facility. It was around 60,000 square feet. And we trained, I'm from Idaho. So Idaho is a big Second Amendment state. Idaho is a constitution
Yeah.
state. So if you're not disqualified from having a firearm, you're an Idaho resident, you can open carry, conceal carry with or without a license. So a lot of people they have guns for self-defense purposes. So we worked with the civilian side, making sure that they didn't shoot anybody that they shouldn't be, didn't walk around with that "I wish they would" mentality. And we had government contracts, worked with most of the feds. We didn't have contracts with some of them, but we did have contracts with most of them, even the IRS's tactical team, which is a super scary thing to think that the IRS has a
Now,
tactical
now
team.
I now I just hate you. I hate you, man.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
are you
don't,
teaching
yeah.
those guys?
Well, because man,
Oh
they're out there
man.
running and gunning or doing their version of it. And
Yeah.
I actually did a couple of operations with them when I was on the SWAT team, and funny stories around that. But suffice it to say, when once we saw like how they were just needing the buddy system just to put their vests on, and were giving that Velcro everything it had to stay intact. We went to our commander and we said, look, like either they make the entry or we make the entry, but we're not doing this blended thing that they want to do. And ultimately, we ended up making the entry while they stood out on the perimeter. And once we got it done, then they came in. But um,
Can you
it's a doozy,
say
man.
this is not what I was expecting, but I'm interested now. Can you say what they were doing? Making entry on what? What was the IRS doing?
It was on a tax thing, so it was on a doctor that was running some bad taxes, and they were in there to go find his computers and get all of his paperwork and try to find his logs and stuff. So they ended up seizing like all the hard drives and stuff like that to get whatever they were after. But it was a tax
So it's
thing for
like
them.
old school sheriff of Nottingham, like tax collecting. Like they're just
Yeah,
gonna
dude.
go, tax, collect their money for the
Oh yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah.
yeah.
We get orders from
Now,
time to time from them to go do till taps. You know what a till tap is?
mm,
People business would be behind on their taxes, and we'd walk in, and the sheriff's office would get this uh, demand letter saying, hey, this business owes on their taxes. They haven't paid for a while. Go till tap them. So you walk in middle of the business hours. They've got clients coming and going, and you walk up to the register and you just pull every bit of cash that they had in that register, and they would apply that to their taxes. So you talk about having to be in an awkward position walking in these guys, and basically it was like a legalized robbery, like a stick-up robbery is what it was.
I was gonna say that's legal. That was
Yeah, man.
legal.
Don't fuck around with the feds. With these 82,000 people that the IRS are bringing on board, what do you think they're going to be out doing?
Holy shit! So from your old job to where you're now, because I imagine you're paying a lot more in taxes now than you
Oh
were
yeah,
back then. So
yeah.
how, what's your point of view now, sitting on this side of things?
Not to fuck around with it. Like this to it'll catch up with you. Like they can say whatever they want as far as who they're talking about targeting in the upper, classes, people making the,
Oh, that
you
we
know,
all know that's
tens of
bullshit.
millions. We all
Yeah.
know it's bullshit. So I don't even want to mess around. I know that once they put a target on you, that target is not coming off until you pay the debt, and they will make your life absolutely miserable, and they'll seize whatever they want, and they'll lock up any of your accounts that they want. I mean, you even look at what Stripe, no, not Stripe, PayPal, and who's the other one?
Venmo.
Venmo just came out and said like now the IRS is requiring that any amount transaction over $600 gets reported to the IRS so that they can keep their thumb on anybody that's doing any of these side hustles and stuff. Like they've got their tentacles and things, and they will find out. And once they do, and you got a target, they're coming after you.
But I thought our boy said if you made under like 40,000 or no over under 400,000, you're don't worry, we're not going to come after you. We're good.
You talking about the same boy that just went to some veteran event and said that he gave his dead uncle a Purple Heart and when he was a
Yeah,
vice president, and his
yeah.
uncle was dead before he was VP, like that guy.
That
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
That guy.
yeah, yeah. We've heard that guy say a few things that may or may not but are likely untrue. Uh,
So, let's get caught up. You were this badass SWAT guy, and I love posting fat pictures of myself. I
mm,
love it.
yeah,
I love that whole story arc happened. I would never go back, and I didn't love the time when I was there. But dude,
totally.
I love posting those photos.
Yeah, totally.
And you recently did one too. What
Yeah.
happened, bro? That's where the nickname Fat Matt came from, right? What
Well,
happened? Tell me that
yeah.
story.
Yeah, first of all, I got a bone to pick with Ray Cash Care hearing that he called me Fat Matt on the interwebs. But the short and sweet of it is entrepreneurs, and
Did you
man, I mean,
hold on. Did you hear what happened to him at the Squire program when I was sitting at dinner?
I did, but I don't think your listeners have, and this is probably a great opportunity.
So, so, so now that he called you Fat Matt, you want me to throw that out there? So
I'm
we're
just saying what's fair is fair.
so we're at the Squire program instructor cadre dinner, and he's talking about being in shape, and Ray's a badass. He's 50 years old. He's an absolute badass. But he says something about cutting down and this and that, and I said, oh, I've seen you better. And the look on his face, I was like, oh fuck, did I just fuck this guy up? And then you guys were saying like, oh, he's fucked for like 3 months. Like he's gonna go on a cut, and you're not gonna see him for like 3 months and stuff.
That's one way to get that dude motivated, man. You say anything like that to him, and that guy goes on an absolute war path. But
Yeah.
I guarantee you fucked up his OODA loop a little bit for sure.
Oh, I love you, Ray. But anyways, he did throw you under the bus several months ago, and anyways, but going
Yeah,
way back, like going from
yeah.
SWAT, going from LE, and I know the story. I literally wrote the book on it. It's called Excommunicated
Hmm.
Warrior: The Seven Stages of Transition. So, which is the second biggest purchaser of that book is law enforcement, by the way, because
Nice.
the parallels are the same. They're the exact
Yeah,
same, and I feel like you're about
totally.
to, without even knowing it, you're gonna open it up. But so you did 10 years. You're on the SWAT program, and then you got big.
I did. Yeah,
You
I
were
was
a
almost
big
pushing almost
boy.
260. Yeah,
260.
yeah,
And
almost
how tall are you?
5'8".
Five.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a big boy.
Dude, the BMI index classified it as morbidly obese. And yeah, man, I packed on some weight.
So why? I mean, we know how that happens, but why did it
Mhm.
happen? Tell me the story of how you went from being on the SWAT team for 5 years to
Yeah.
260 pounds.
Yeah, man. So I became an accidental entrepreneur. So 2013 timeframe, our family had sold a business that we'd had in San Francisco down on Market Street. It had been in business for like the 60s. And the Hilton came in. They wanted the space, they wanted the real estate. So they made an offer to the family. This is something that my mom and her two siblings had 50% of the business, and then my grandmother's brother had the other 50% of something my grandmother and her brother started back in the 60s. And Hilton came and said, hey, we want to put a hotel here. They worked out a deal. My mom came into a healthy amount of money, and then she came to me and said, I'd like to invest this into something or somebody. I don't know what that is, but you seem like a safe bet. You got any ideas? That was the first time I'd ever thought about even branching out of law enforcement, what I was doing. I had a sweet gig. Our team is not a full-time SWAT team, it's a part-time team, which most of the departments around the country are. A handful of
Mhm.
them have full-time teams. And so my primary gig was an undercover narcotics detective. at the time. So between the two, I legitimately had the sweetest gigs in law enforcement. But when she came to me and said um, she would throw some money at it and ask me what my thoughts, that's where I started to think, maybe I can get out of law enforcement, which was a profession I wasn't sure I was really going to be able to retire from anyways, just based on the trends and the direction that the profession's going. And I thought,
I
well,
mean,
shit,
and
I know.
that 10, 12 year mark is like it's like a real sweet spot, whether you're going to bail or going to get out. That's where
Yeah,
typically like you get burnt out around 10, 12 years. You start having medical
totally.
issues and physical issues, and like, cause you're just running ragged. And that's
Yeah,
typically when people bail. They either get promoted and ride a desk or bail.
totally. Yep, exactly. And I bailed. But
Yeah, so did
I
I.
had an off ramp. Yeah. So, I opened this special operations company. It's something you're familiar with. A lot of
Mhm.
law enforcement militaries are familiar with. It was an indoor outdoor training facility. It looked like a scenario village, and it was meant for force on force training. So we ran all either simunition or UTM out of it, and that's just really what we specialized in. Um, but the when I opened it, I didn't skip out on anything. I mean, everything, the attention to detail was there. It was immaculate inside, and it was incredible. But I didn't know shit about actually being an entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about running a team on the civilian side, managing the books. I was a fish out of water when it came to being in business, and I really didn't experience anything outside of what I think most entrepreneurs that are brand new to being an entrepreneur experience. The way in which I handled it, though, I think is different than some. So first of all, I refused to give up. Most businesses fail in their first year. I absolutely
Yeah.
refused to give up and to quit. But even though I had a good business model, it was being well received. I can just continue to lose more money every month than I was making, and it just kept eating further and further into the working capital. And after the first year, the accountant's like, "Look, dude, you got enough to continue on, but you've got to figure this out. Like 1 year from now, if we're having the same conversation, you're not going to be in business." And so
Yeah.
I was working hours that I mean, from before sunrise to after sunset every single day. I was, missing time with my wife, my son. I was driving
Like all
through
of
all the,
us. Yeah.
yeah, dude. I was driving through the
Yeah.
fast food restaurants and just based on making excuses, lacking discipline, and just throwing myself a pity party. I in my head, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I knew the shit I should be doing versus shouldn't be doing. But I was making decisions that were just compounding in nature, and so the weight just stacked on. And before I knew it, I was fat as shit. I was and my mindset matched the way I looked. My bank account matched the way I looked. The relationship with my wife and son matched the way I looked. Like everything was just at an all-time low, with the exception of my the weight on the scale, which was at an all-time high.
So, did anybody go, "Hey Matt, what the fuck?
No, they should have. They should have. But
Why
that
don't we do that?"
I don't know, man. I don't know. Uh, you know, I think part of it was because I didn't facilitate the opportunity for that to happen, right? Like I'd love to be able to just say I was hanging out with the wrong people and it's their fault and they should have, could have. But the fact of the matter is, Nick, as I walked around taking that fake it till you make it approach. And
Yeah.
internally, like I was devastated. Internally, I knew I was fat. I knew I was
Same.
broke. I knew my
Yeah.
credit score was shit. I knew that the business wasn't thriving. But what I would tell people and the perception that people had was that everything was great. And so I just think that because I of ego and of pride, like I wasn't being vulnerable with people back then, and I wasn't just calling it what it was, and so I
Mm.
wasn't facilitating the conversation for people to be honest with me, and that lasted for the first 2 to 3 years where I put on this front before I really got to a place where there was just no hiding anymore. Like there was just physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, like there was just no hiding anymore and that's when I finally put my pride and ego aside, had a conversation with a mentor of mine, and he was the first person to really say, you are the problem, and if you don't fix yourself, Like none of this other shit is going to just work itself out. And I'm so thankful that he did, because he didn't buy the bullshit, and he called me on it.
Mm.
And that was the point where um, everything began to change for me back in 2015 timeframe.
Yes, it's kind of funny because our timeline's I got out in 2012. Things the worst for me was probably 2016, and then right after that is when everything started to change. I
Hmm.
started getting my shit together, but that's when everything else started to change too. My bank account, my
Hmm.
relationships, like everything started to change. But
Totally. Yeah.
it all had to start with me. And but anyways, it's funny how that works out. Um, but all it takes is that one person, and I always talk about that. I'm like, I'm gonna be that person for people, and people can hate me
Hmm.
for it, and they're like, oh, well, you're putting people down. No, I'm not putting people down. That's not the intent.
Yeah.
That's not the intent. The intent is to get them to wake up and hold them accountable, because they can be
Yeah.
better. They know they can be better, but nobody, everybody's like, you've probably heard this, or hell, we've said this. Well, it's none of my business. I don't want to get involved. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
that's why I posted that post of me, and the image that you see first, because you got to scroll to the right before you actually
yeah,
see the,
yeah,
the good spray tanned, six pack version of me. The
yeah.
the the very first photo that the world sees is the fattest shit standing there with, um, just morbidly obese, and I purposely put it there because there are too many people out there that they are living quiet lives of just absolute
Mhm.
desperation. And in their minds, they're telling themselves a narrative that just is not serving them well. They're not taking ownership of their circumstances. And I figured, if I can put this out there and it speaks to anybody, and it resonates with them, and that's something that helps them start taking action in the right direction, then so be it. Like, I will put myself on Front Street, I'll put my story on Front Street, because I'm not in a place where I have to hide anymore. And
Right.
looking back, being unauthentic and living that life of quiet desperation and trying to pretend like I was somebody I wasn't, dude, it was so exhausting. I didn't realize how much additional weight I was adding to myself just trying to pretend like I was somebody that I wasn't. And now, in a completely different place, from a place of complete authenticity, it's like, you know, it's like the weight of the world was lifted off, and now I can use that time as a to remind myself never to go back to that place again, and never to
Hmm.
become that person again, and b to hopefully help anybody else um, that's in that place to know, look, like, you just got to do it, man. Nobody's going to do it for you. You've just got to do it, and if you're willing to do it, then the results are there. But nobody can
Isn't
nobody can get that for you.
isn't it actually? It's actually easier to live by doing all the hard things that we do. All the real uncomfortable things, the things that we weren't doing back then, that you think that, like, oh, he was sleeping in, he was eating whatever he wanted, he had the life, he was taking the easy road. But the
Mhm.
reality is, it's actually harder to live that way than it is getting up super early, training all the time, counting your macros, getting in cold tubs, doing all the hard shit that's really uncomfortable. It's actually easier to do that and have a life than vice versa.
Oh man, and that was a talk that you gave at the Squire program that you hosted, was talking about, choose your hard, right?
Yeah.
Choose to do the hard thing now and experience and enjoy the easy thing afterwards, or choose the hard thing afterwards, um, or choose the easy thing now and experience the hard afterwards, right? But choosing
Because
your
it's
hard,
coming.
and it's coming, right? You're
It's
not
coming.
you're
Yeah.
not you can't take the easy path and expect to have the ideal outcomes and results. It's just not the way the world
Right.
works. But yeah, man, it absolutely is the case that in choosing to do the hard thing, the you're paving the path for easy afterwards. And this morning, my wife and up, our alarm goes off at 4:30 every single morning. We're at the gym by 5:30, and this morning it's going off, and I'm like, fuck, man. It's Christmas break. It's 4:30. I took a couple melatonin last night, and I just, like, I was just sleeping so well. But instantly that voice started to talk that said that you're being a bitch. I tell myself you're being a bitch right now,
Yeah.
and where that comes from, that's lessons learned of you were a bitch before and you chose to
Hmm.
have a snooze button to even hit to go back to sleep with, and you chose before to skip that workout, and where did that get you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so um,
Broke and stressed and fat and yeah,
yeah, man,
ran
yeah,
thin. Yeah.
yeah, just emotionally broke, physically broke, just financially, all of it, man. And it just that's just I think as humans, like living organisms, like we instinctually want to take the easy path. I think just out of
Yeah.
conservation of energy, that's an instinctual thing, and too many people give into it. They give into the instincts of preserving
Mhm.
energy and taking the easy route, and then ends up suffering the consequences. Um,
Right.
so
So, okay, so you had a mentor that called you on your bullshit, told you to get your shit
yeah,
together. What was
yeah.
that process like? Like, obviously, it doesn't happen overnight. People think like, oh, there's a switch that happens. No, it doesn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight for me. Um,
Yeah.
what did that process look like for you?
Well, it started by this extreme ownership, really. Like this process of the world is not out to get you. There's
Right.
plenty of opportunity out there for everybody. Um, Things are not happening to you, like you are allowing this shit to happen, and and these are outcomes and results of poor decision making. So the first thing became just really just understanding that I cannot lead other people. I can't lead my wife. I can't lead my son. I can't lead the team I have at the business. I can't lead anybody until I learn how to effectively lead myself.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to lead other people when I wasn't effectively leading myself was just hypocrisy. And it's a do as I say, not as I do approach. And nobody respects that. Everybody sees it. They may not say it, but they
Yeah.
see it and they understand when you're being a hypocrite. And I was being a hypocrite. Um, and so the focus became um, don't look externally, look internally. Start living the life in all the important areas that are going to make a difference and start to pave the path for your future. And leadership is always the problem. It is always the solution. And I have it inside me to change the outcomes, but I must do the work. And so where it started was recognizing um, that I needed to sit in the driver's seat of my own life. I could no
Yeah.
longer just sit on the sidelines. I could no longer make excuses, and I had to start leading myself in my health, in my wealth, in my relationships, and start getting that dialed in. Once I started doing that, then I started having a new level of confidence, real confidence, not
Right.
fake the bullshit. I wasn't at a place where I was saying things just to impress people, even though they were untrue. I started having more confidence in myself because I started stacking the wins. And the
Yeah.
more days where I would finish it, and I had more wins and losses, and then the more weeks and months that became the reality that I had more wins and losses, the more confidence and faith I had in myself. And that's where I started to gain momentum in the process and started to realize I do have the power and control to change my own circumstances, and I just took control of that. Then I started to really evaluate my proximity to unhealthy habits, unhealthy people, unhealthy relationships, and started to edit or delete those relationships to start getting almost to a place of being polarizing, like embracing polarization by pushing
Yeah.
away the people, the habits, the belief systems that weren't serving me, weren't serving my goals, my future, and then attracting the people that would facilitate the kind of growth and the life that I wanted to make more of a reality. So it was getting close proximity to the things, the habits, the um, the characteristics that represented the goals that I had, and pushing away everything else out. And then I also established core values that were just instrumental as well. Like I didn't have any filters that I would process anything through. I didn't have kind of a North Star, and so I was just doing I think what most people are doing, which they're just going day by day, but they don't have any real like strategy, any real structure. They
Yeah.
have general goals, but no real like no strategy or pathway to make sure those goals get accomplished. And I was that same way. Core values for me became those filters that I layered in as well that became instrumental too.
Did you work with that mentor, or did you get a coach to do like all these different things, or did you go on your own and just said I'll figure it out?
No, dude, I hired him at a point where I couldn't afford him. At a point where like I had no resources to do it. I knew that if I knew what to do, uh, I would have done it already. And so many things are they're common sense, they're just not common knowledge. And so when it
Right.
came to business, like I needed help understanding how to be an entrepreneur. My business acumen was very low, and I was trying to take that fake it till you make it. I thought hard work pays off. Well, hard work doesn't always pay off, right? If you're working super hard the wrong direction, you're not going to get the outcomes and results that you want,
You're
right?
just gonna work really hard.
You're just going to work hard. And that's all I
Yeah.
was doing. I was working super fucking
Yeah.
hard, and I had nothing positive to show for it. So um, I hired this mentor because I was looking at the current status of the relationship with my wife and my son. And I said that, that's just a non-negotiable to lose that. I was looking at
Yeah.
how the business was trending, and everything was going to cost me way more in both financially and mentally and physically than not to hire him. So I hired him, and he basically filled in the gap. So I knew, coming from the SWAT team, I knew that the bridge between what I want and what I have is discipline, right? Like
Mhm.
if I execute on discipline and I do the
Yep.
things that I need to do, I will go from where I'm at to where I want to be. The thing that was missing before that is I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what things to specifically be doing, um, that that I could then execute on discipline wise, especially when it came to the business component of it. I did know from the health and nutrition side of it, so I just started doing the things I did know what to do. But but yeah, he helped kind of dial me in, call me on my bullshit on things. I don't think that
I was just
that
about to say the biggest thing with that is the accountability of having to answer to another man on a
yeah,
regular basis about your actions, right?
yeah,
It's like,
it was humbling.
what did, yeah, did you do all the non-negotiable tasks? Did you check off, did you do the things that you were supposed to do this week or this month? Or did you
Yeah,
just sit on your ass? And that date's
yeah,
coming up where you got to check in with that mentor, that coach. And you're like, and for us, we don't want to, as men, you don't want to look like a jackass. So
yeah,
you get the things done.
yeah, yeah,
And
man. And it, and
that moves
that,
the needle in your life.
totally. And that, so when it came to sometimes our friends and our family are the worst at
Yes.
facilitating an environment where we're allowed to
Yeah.
have the excuses and to give the bullshit, right? Because they
They
love us,
love
they
you.
care for us, they
They
don't
love
they
you.
don't want to hurt
Yeah.
our feelings. Yeah, so they'll say, you know
Yeah.
what, you did more than what most people did, or that's you tried, and yeah, you came up short, but it's okay, and they'll pat
But
us
we
on the
still love
back,
you. Yeah.
right, yeah. But if they really loved us, they'd be like, look, bro, like you made a commitment, you're not honoring that commitment. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
you're going against the things you said you're going to do. Don't do that. Like be a person of integrity, and when you say you're going to do something, do it. When you say you're going to be somewhere, be there, right? Our friends and family aren't great at having the conversation, but when you hire a mentor or a coach, well, they're not paid there to be your friend, right? They're not paid to be your
Right.
cheerleader. Like they're there to hold you accountable. They're there to call in your bullshit and remind you all the things you said were so important, and to help keep you on track while you're developing yourself to a place to where um, you don't need to be held accountable to that degree. And it took me a
Right.
couple of years working with this mentor of really getting to a place where I just had to figure out how to lead myself first. Like leadership is the
Yeah.
problem, it is the solution. I was ineffectively leading myself, and therefore I was ineffectively leading other people. And so that accountability was a huge component of it. Yeah, because as a man, I did not like being called out, but it needed to happen.
It has to happen, man. It has to happen. So it's
Hmm.
funny you say that about those priorities, because that's literally the first thing I do. Like, I bring a client in here and they sit down for their half day, and I'm like,
Hmm.
tell me your priorities. And then we sit down
Hmm.
and we talk about their life. And I'm like, okay, now we got a benchmark. First of all,
Hmm.
your routine in life don't match what you said your priorities are. So we're going to work on
Right.
those. But
Right.
then as the months go on, I can go, well, wait a minute, because we have ebbs and flows, we have highs and lows. If they have a low, I can go, wait a minute. You said that this is what you told me was a priority. So what the
Hmm.
hell, man? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Totally.
they go, oh,
Totally.
you're right. I need to unfuck myself. You know what I mean?
And the key to it too, Nick, is, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. I wouldn't be welcomed on your show, which, by the way, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, man. Um, if I was walking around with low standards and expectations, right? And
Yeah.
there's too many people who what they think they're capable of, what they think that they are able to produce, what they're able to achieve, um, is dramatically lower than what they're actually able to produce and
Yeah.
achieve and what they're truly capable of. And it takes mentors and coaches. It takes somebody like you sitting down with somebody to be like, what are your goals? And to hear those goals and then even say those are weak. Like those goals are weak goals. The amount of money you want to make, the things that you
Yeah.
want to achieve, the impact you want to have, um, they need to be leaned on and challenged by people who have higher standards of expectations, because that's how you
Right.
get others to raise their standards as well. And so what I thought was success, what I thought was wealth, what I thought was um, what was real donation opportunities and experiences that I could have for myself and family life. It was far lower than I realized it should have been. And it took somebody with the outside eyes, that wasn't in
Yeah.
the shit, that could see the forest through the trees, that had a much higher level of standards and expectations of themselves and lives, um, to challenge it. And then through that process as well, the belief system, as I would stack the wins and my belief system and confidence was increasing, then so were my what was my understanding of what was possible. And again, from my local network and the people that I was running around with at the time, like I love them, but even their belief system at the time it was mediocre at best, right? It just
Get by,
they just want to be
survive.
happy. They just want to get by,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That wasn't good enough for me.
Absolutely not. So let me ask you, are you like this special butterfly that only you could achieve what you've achieved? Only you could go from 260 to 200 or whatever where you weigh now, like, are you just this special character that achieved all this?
No, no, there is nothing special about me at all.
But
You know,
I think that's where people watch these stories, right? And they think they tell themselves that can't be me. I
yeah,
can't
that's a
be a
self-limiting
Nick.
belief.
I I right? Right? You hear what he said? Like, I can't be a Matt. I can't be a Nick. Those guys are different than me. And the
Yeah,
reality is we're not. We're
no,
really not.
yeah,
We just made a choice.
no. That's it, man. I mean, you and I have the same number of hours in the day as everybody else, right? We live in the same country with the same kind of opportunities as everybody else. What we do with our hours is going to be different than almost everybody else. There's
Right.
nothing there's nothing that prevents anybody from setting their alarm at 4:30 in the morning, making the decision to not hit the snooze button or skip that workout, to get it in and stack the first wins for the day, and just go through the process of choosing hard over easy, leaning
Mm-hmm.
into the experiences and the opportunities and the pains and the growth that comes from it, and through a process of just being consistent over time, experiencing the benefits. That's people just they pull the ripcord too
This is
quickly.
anyone. Anyone.
Anybody. Yeah.
Anybody can
Yeah.
do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's not a single listener or person that's out there that doesn't have the opportunity to do this, that doesn't have the ability and capability of doing this. And it's a choice to not improve your circumstances. It is an absolute choice to be in the same or worse place today than they were a year ago. And it's a
yeah.
choice to be in a much better place 1 year from now as they are today. But that's a
No, I
choice that
get
each person has to make.
I get this a lot, and I'm curious if you do too. And this is like comments. These are comments and like, stupid stuff on social media. Oh, so let me, because I'll post my story or I'll do a video where explain like what I how I grew up, my military career, post that, and then kind of the fall of myself, and then kind of the rise back. And then a lot of people just go, so let me get this straight. You got a little fat, you got a little chubby, and you lost weight, and now you're successful because of that. So all I have to do is go to the gym, and then all of a sudden I become successful. Do you ever hear that?
Yes, I do get that from time to time. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
can you paint me a correlation between being physically fit and successful? Is there a correlation? Why is it that, or is there a correlation?
There's 100% a correlation. Absolutely.
What
You know, the
explain to the listeners why. So it's not coming from Uncle Nick and I'm not yelling.
the correlation is simple. The process of going, in my case, from almost 260 pounds to right now I'm at 190, um,
Woo.
and being at the old yeah being the oldest I've ever been in my life, being the fittest I've
And
ever
and
been.
how old are you?
41.
41.
Yep,
Okay.
41. Yeah. Being, having, the most amount of money, ever. I've on the coaching side, I do very well there. That's one of several um, revenue streams that I have. I'm the executive vice
Hmm.
president of a global software company, investing in a really cool fishing lure company out of Hawaii right now. I've got the coaching thing and obviously a co-founder of the project and Squire. None of that shit would be possible if I didn't have um, the discipline to choose the hard thing over the easy thing. And it really just it's a very simple thing. It's just not easy.
Hmm.
And it's not easy because the human body wants to take the easy route. It wants to go back to bed. It wants to skip that workout. It wants to push the
Right.
project. But the correlation between the getting fit and the success and the bank accounts and the relationships is is not making excuses. It's knowing what the success habits are, knowing that I don't have to recreate the wheel. I can look around and I can say, what are
Right.
other people who are representing the kind of life that I want for myself and my family? What are they doing? Right? And you start to look at success habits. And when it comes to the fitness part of it is when you are making the decisions to get the workouts in, when you're making the decisions to eat right, and you're putting the kind of food in your body that your body actually wants and needs, not the shit that it doesn't, and you are experiencing the benefits of getting shredded. Not only do you start to feel better inside because your body is actually operating at a more optimal level because of the nutrition, because of the weight resistance, because of the dopamine that you experience, because of actually liking what you see in the mirror. You have
Hmm.
this total mental shift and this total um, uh, belief system about how you can start to really control your outcomes, right? Nobody can ever argue with result and outcomes. They just are what they are. Whatever we produce
Right.
is what we produce. And so when it comes to being in shape, it is a byproduct of staying disciplined and consistent over time. And anything that we do in life where we are disciplined and consistent over time, we will see positive outcomes and results. And so when I'm disciplined and consistent in my business, in my relationships, in my the date night with my wife every single week, with my training jujitsu with my wife and son, with all of it, the outcomes and results continue to be positive. And so, there's two things, Nick, that we all control, and that's our attitude and our effort, right? And nobody can ever take those things away from us. And when we apply those
Hmm.
two things to to um, to to elements that create momentum in the right direction, we become this unstoppable force.
Right.
We cannot be stopped, and we will overcome anything. We will go over the mountain. We'll go through the mountain. We'll go underneath the mountain. But we will not be stopped. We will not accept failure, and we start to be able to ride this momentum and just continue to build off of it. So it's an evolution that does not happen overnight. It takes a long time of doing the right thing that builds us up to that place. And then once you capture momentum and that flywheel starts to spin, you do not want to lose it. You start to see what you've been able to create, and it becomes this thing that you just continue to feed the beast, and
Yeah.
you just keep going.
But it's funny you say that because it is, and the reality of it is boring and slow and monotonous, and it's just
Totally.
the work. It's the slow, But the reason why that I stand by it, and the very first pillar of the Agoge is fitness, because it needs a foundation to sit on. We need a foundation to sit on, and I believe for men, fitness is that foundation because, like we talk about in the Squire program, if these young men get jacked and ripped as a young man, what is
Hmm.
that telling me? They're disciplined and consistent. And if I
Hmm.
can get somebody who's disciplined and consistent, well, that means they can be disciplined and consistent in all areas of their life.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
and that's really what it comes down to.
Totally, dude. And I like, in today's day and age, I don't when I whether it's the software company or it's any of the other companies that I'm affiliated with or I'm investing in, I don't give a shit about a degree on somebody's wall that they got, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Right.
It's I do look at how people look, right? And we are
Yeah.
all we we are all being sized up and evaluated. If I see somebody
Mm-hmm.
who is fat and out of shape and they're disheveled and they've got stains on their clothes and their shoes are all fucked up, and like they just have this overall appearance like they don't care. Well, that tells me a story about the way in
Mm-hmm.
which I would expect to see them perform in whatever area that I would be hiring them for or working with them on, right? And my wife doesn't want to. She doesn't want a 260-pound fat dude. Especially as I get older and my hair gets gray, and like I didn't wear the 260 weight back then well, and I'm certainly not going to wear it better as time goes on and as I get
No.
wrinkly and
Yeah.
and older, right? Like my wife doesn't want to see me fat. I've got a 13-year-old son that is
Mm.
evaluating the kind of work ethic that I have, the kind of discipline that I have.
Well, we're gonna
Um,
get to the sun. We're gonna get to the sun thing real quick. So we've been talking about
yeah,
all this stuff. The reason why that I wanted to have you on. So this is gonna air the second, January 2nd, and you know what comes. You know what comes with the first of the year?
yeah,
New Year's
resolutions.
resolutions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I'm listening to Nick and Matt, and I'm like, you know what? I like what these guys have to say. They're pushing my
Hmm.
buttons. They're making me uncomfortable because I'm that guy. I got some New Year's resolutions. All right, how do we actually accomplish? How do we truly meet it? If we have a New Year's resolution, how do we truly meet it? I think they're bullshit. But let's turn New Year's resolutions into objectives. All right,
Hmm.
listeners, if you have a New Year's resolution, just remove that from your vocab and then just put in objective. I have an objective.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do we accomplish our objectives, Matt?
Well, first of all, I think resolutions are bullshit too. I mean, why are you going to wait? Is this thing really important to you, or is it not important to you? Right? So if it is, then
Yes.
December 19th. Like December 19th is the day you start, or this is going to be airing,
Right.
January 2nd. So call it what you want. But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is the diet doesn't need to wait till Monday. You don't need to start your diet on Monday so that you're giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself an excuse to act like an idiot,
Binge,
eat like an idiot on
binge,
this,
binge
Friday, Saturday,
pizza
Sunday.
and ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes down to meeting the objective, um, for me, it became having core values. I'll go back to that, like having a North Star and like non-negotiable core values. That was instrumental for me, and I don't think enough people they have those non-negotiables where they will say yes or no to things based on whether or not those filters what those filters say. Um, the you can't accept a life of mediocrity by allowing yourself to make excuses. And the we all live a life where there's peaks and valleys. Like none of us are always are
Right.
in on the peaks, and we find ourselves in the valleys because there's we talk about this in the project and in Squire, and I talk to my coaching clients about this as well. Like there's three entities inside of all of us. There's the bear, there's the dragon, and then there's the advocate, right? And the bear is that voice inside that wants to tell you to give up on your goals, to take the easy path, that mediocrity is okay. It's the voice that once you do start to achieve things wants to get you back to a place of comfortability, which is
Right.
referred to as upper limiting. The dragon is that outside influence that we have no control over. It's the kids getting sick. It's the person that runs into you because they were texting and driving. It's the shit that's going on with inflation, and the dragon
Mm-hmm.
is this outside chaos that all of us are exposed to all the time. And then you have the advocate, which is the part of us that knows that what we want um, and what we have are not the same, and we deserve to have what we want, and is that cheerleader inside of us. When it comes to meeting the objectives, it's just recognizing the fact that um, we cannot give ourselves an off ramp. So one of my core values is to always burn the boats. Like and that if people know the origin story from that, it's 1700. But the short and sweet of it is, don't ever go into anything with a plan B. Don't ever go into
Yeah.
anything with 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Don't ever go into anything with if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to do this. Now that
Yeah.
is
Because
different than having an alternate breach point.
you're creating a
Go ahead.
limiting belief for yourself by doing that.
You're giving yourself an exit strategy.
Yeah.
You're yeah, my mom's on her ninth marriage right now. And so I grew up in an environment where there was this constant revolving door of men coming and going and coming and going. And at some point, earlier on, several years ago, I challenged her on this, and she said, "Matt, every time I would get married to a guy, I always knew that if it didn't work out, I could just get a divorce." She went into the marriage with this exit strategy, and she had this pre-built off ramp to where if shit got hard, she could just pull the ripcord on it, get a divorce, and move on. And I saw the impact that had on our family and the number of restarts we had and the number of times we moved and the fact that I would move from one school to the next school and had this
Mhm.
inconsistency with relationships and how my mom was always preoccupied with these relationships that were coming and going. And and it just came down to the fact that she didn't have a victory or death mindset with it. And I think that there's too many people that lack a victory or death mindset when it comes to the things that they say are important in their life. If it's truly important to you, then don't have an off ramp. Don't give yourself an exit strategy. Have an adapt
Yeah.
or an overcome mindset. Have a victory or death mindset, and do not accept failure as an option. If your overall objective is X, how you achieve X, you may need to get creative and ebb and flow and shift and pivot and move from this breach point to that breach point. But if your objective is to get in the house, get in the structure, um, then whether it's the front door, it's the back door, whether it's blowing a hole in the side of the house, you get into the house if that's the objective.
Yeah.
And it's really just not making excuses for not achieving the goal, and giving yourself a pathway to accept anything less than the victory.
So I mean, that can be applied to anything, whether you want to lose weight in 2023, make a bunch more money, improve your relationship, whatever it may be. Read a bunch of books. Doesn't really matter what it is. The concept is the same.
Yeah, dude, if you're gonna set a goal, then then the concept is exactly the same. I think what people do is they set these New Year's resolutions or they set these goals and they say they're serious about them, but they're not. They're really not.
Right.
Because how could you really be that serious about losing the 20 pounds or getting out of
They
debt or
they
repairing the
want
messages?
them. They want them, but they're
Yeah.
not willing to do the work to
So
do what
how
it
bad do
takes
they
to
want
get
them?
them. Yeah.
Yes. So do you really want it or you
They,
just kind of want it?
I think they want it without having to do the work. They just want it to appear.
Well, yeah, yeah. Don't we all, right? They say, wish in one hand and shit in the other, and see which one fills up faster,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
you can't you. That's just not the way that life works, guys. I mean,
Right.
um, if what you want is a healthy relationship with your wife or your husband or your kids, it takes work. If you want to get out of debt, it takes work. If you want, wealth and you want to be able to experience more, like it just takes doing the work that is required in order to achieve the objective. But just simply wanting it isn't going to change anything. You've
Yeah.
got to do what it takes, and what it takes is going to be different depending on what you want. But I think that too many people they have self-limiting beliefs. They What they want and what they're willing to do for it are not the same,
Yeah.
and they want to make excuses for the lacking the obtaining the objective, and they are surrounded by other people that will pat them on the back and will tell them they tried and will allow for them to have lower standards as a result. And it's just not serving
Yeah.
them well.
Yeah. So let's pivot into, you said you had a 14-year-old son?
13.
13. So 260-pound Matt,
Yeah.
not a great role model.
No.
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 Talk to me
No.
about
Especially
that.
that
Talk
this
to me.
is yeah, yeah. So this is when he did see me, he would see, fat dad coming through the door. But I was leaving, before he was up. I was coming home after he was in bed. Like it was I was an absentee dad, that when I was around, just I wasn't a role model in any way, right? He wasn't experiencing what a father should be,
Yeah.
and he wasn't seeing me be a protector. He wasn't seeing me be a provider. He wasn't seeing me respect myself. I think, Nick, people who allow themselves to get that fat are truly disrespecting themselves. Like I look
Oh, of
at
course.
how
Yeah.
big I was in that picture, and I'm like, dude, I was so disrespectful to myself. I was disrespectful to my wife. I was disrespectful to this very short life that I have here, and really giving myself the ability to optimize life. Um, but yeah, man, my son would never obviously come out and say that he thought I was fat, or maybe kids would. My son didn't,
Yeah.
but I knew I knew that my appearance and the way that I was showing up for him and my wife was something that was undesirable, and it was
Yeah.
not setting. He wasn't seeing me do the work, but what he was seeing was the outcomes of me not doing the work. And as somebody who wanted to raise a son that was going to be somebody who respected themselves and had big dreams and aspirations and was willing to do the work for it, like I wasn't that guy, and it was
Yeah.
it was actually quite devastating to come to terms with.
And now, what is it like
Yeah,
now that you just got your purple belt, right, a little bit ago?
yeah, June.
Jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, it's about 6 months ago. Yeah.
6 months ago. Congratulations there.
Thanks, brother.
Um, and and your whole family's doing it. Wife got her blue
Yeah,
belt,
dude.
right?
Yeah, my,
And
my son and
so
I, we actually started jiu-jitsu together in 2017. So part of this journey was my son and I actually getting into jiu-jitsu together and training together. And we train 4 days a week, 5 days a week, and have since 2017. My wife got into it a couple of years ago. She's a blue belt, and yeah, man. Now my son, the conversations we have around the dinner table, um, the um, the fact that he wakes up in the mornings and he's getting himself up and he's getting himself ready before we get home from the gym, but he sees us getting home from the gym. He understands the reasons why we eat the things we eat and the things why we don't eat the things we don't. He's part of the conversation, and he's experiencing the outcomes. He's experiencing the results. That you know as a byproduct of me getting my shit together, and the ripple effect that that's had. He's now living a lifestyle of abundance. He doesn't go without. And in fact, he's right now as we speak, he's in Idaho's number one private school for business and entrepreneurship. It is not an inexpensive school, but it is amazing. And he is getting opportunities there. He's getting opportunities at home. He's getting opportunities with the proximity that we have to other people and the things we do and the influence that we're having, experiences we're creating, um, in ways that now I have a totally new sense as a father who takes great pride in being a protector and a provider, that is it is aligned with the kind of dad that I never had, that I always wanted, and that I can genuinely say I'm proud to be, and know that I'm having the kind of influence on him that is shaping him in the right way. Whereas before, I could not have said that.
So how much of this influence do you feel is active versus passive? And passive meaning just you being you and setting the example of the way you're living your life with your wife now, compared to like, actively parenting, actively fathering, and the communications, and then the physical things that you're doing. What would you say? How what is that split, and how important is the passive side of it?
Well, dude, I mean, I think it comes down to intentionality. I think all he sees now is
Mm.
intentionality. I think he sees intention behind everything that we do. I think
I
he
love that.
he
I love that
sees,
word. It's one of my favorite words.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think he sees us. He doesn't see us do anything, um, um, just by us doing anything other than being in the driver's seat of our own lives. Like he sees us being in
Yeah.
control over the things we can control, and just taking ownership of it. So I mean, I think what he sees and experiences is almost entirely active, um, by way of the intentionality around it, and him being part of the conversation when we do goal setting, and
Yeah.
when we talk about where we want to be and the things we want to achieve. Um, it's he's understanding that it's all by design. Like
Yeah.
we're not just kind of floating through. Like he sees the
You're not
intentionality
flying.
behind
You're
it.
not flying by the seat of your pants. Everything is
Right,
the whole thing is done with intention. Life is done with intention.
right, right.
Um.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what your. I mean, I'm gonna know, but for the listeners, and we've talked about the Squire program a lot, but
Hmm.
on the podcast. But from your point of view, with your son, from where you're at, what how important, or I guess not how important, how beneficial would it be for a father and son to go through the Squire program?
Dude, I mean, it's a game changer. My son and I went through it a few classes ago, and I had wanted to take him through it since we started this thing a couple of years ago. I have no reference points as a father. So, there's a saying that when it comes to that parent-child relationship, we always have two opportunities at it, right? Once when you're the child, the other one where you're the parent.
Mm.
Well, I don't, because of this revolving door of men that came and went. Um, I don't have virtually any real reference points of what it means to be, um, a, a really effective, good dad. by way of being raised in an environment where I saw it. And my biological father was an abusive alcoholic, drunk, that my mom pulled us out of the relationship when I was 3. My little brother, she was 7 months pregnant with, and and she yanked us out one night after she took her last beating, and we left. And I had no relationship with the guy. I got a call from his sister about 8 months or so ago that he had died, alone, in his apartment with the TV on the couch. He'd been there for a few days, and asked if I wanted to be a part of the funeral, or have any of the belongings, or and I wanted nothing to do with it. And I remember thinking, I have almost zero emotion about the fact that this guy, my biological father, died, and thinking to
You
myself, how
telling me that?
tragic
Yeah.
is that?
Like
And I can't
you
even.
didn't feel anything. Yeah.
No, how tragic is that, dude? As a
Yeah.
father, like your child not caring that you died, right? Um, and so I am so passionate about what we're doing with the Squire program, because it serves two primary functions. Function number one is to pour into these young men, and to start mentoring them. Some of these kids, they lack any sort of real mentorship, and guidance, and these reference points early on in life, when they're starting to branch out into manhood from boyhood. And the Squire program allows for them to be surrounded by a bunch of other young men, and the instructors, where we can basically pull back the curtain on the recipes for success, and say, this is what it means to be a man, and this is what society needs. Society needs um, men to understand that being a man and being masculine is not toxic. It is not toxic to stand up and look a man in the eye, or look, whoever you're shaking their hand in the eye, and not do that from a seated position. It's not toxic to hold the door open for women and others, and give up your seat for
Right.
people, on the bus. It's not toxic to stand up and defend others who cannot defend themselves. And it is essential that we all, as men, um, we become these protectors and these providers, and not to be passive aggressive, not to turn devices, and to associate with others that are going to take us down the wrong path. And so it's a way for us to really start instilling in them these success habits, and these key elements of becoming, um, that kind of man that other good girls are going to want to marry, and the kind of man that, as that good girl introduces them to the fathers, that the father is thinking, this is the kind of man I want my daughter to marry, right?
Right.
And so, it's a way for us to pour into these young men, and to start educating them on the do's and don'ts of manhood in a successful way, and not to allow society that wants to tell you being lazy is okay, and turn to medication for everything, and
Yeah.
mediocrity is acceptable, and um, you know plus size models is the thing. Like, it's cool to be plus size. Cool, it's cool to be fat and be out of shape and be unhealthy. um, and then for the dads, they're there too, and they're going through it as well, and it's a way for us to kind of instill in the same things, but have them looking at it through the lens of, these kids are looking to you. They're looking to see, like, what decisions are you making? How are you
How,
treating your wife? How are you treating business? How are you treating yourself?
how are
And
you
is it
leading?
healthy, or what they say?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. how
Right.
how are you leading? Are you even leading, right?
Right.
um, and so,
So then it's
it's
not just a bunch of PT. It's not just a bunch of physical
no,
training then. 'Cause I think that's
no,
what people
no.
see a lot. That people see like, oh, it's just like I'm gonna go send my kid there I'm gonna take my kid here, and they're just gonna get
Mhm.
yelled at. This is what
Yeah.
it's gonna be. It's just gonna be like a PT yelling fest, and that's not what it is. And
No,
it's
no.
hard.
The, the
It's hard to understand. It's hard to explain that process.
yeah, man. The PT makes for good media content, right? Like
Yeah.
it, it,
Right.
it gets
Yeah.
the, it gets the it gets the algorithms going. for
Yeah.
social, which gets the word out there. But the reality is that it's a very healthy balance of PT and classroom. It's a balance of the kids being mentored on their own, and the fathers
And
on
the
their
fathers
own, a
being,
blend of the two. But everything is by design, right? Everything is designed to teach a lesson. So whether it's the ice bath, or it's the hike, or it's the
hmm
the push-ups or the bear crawls, all of it is designed to teach a
or the
very valuable
surf, or
lesson.
the surf if you're coming to Surf City, North Carolina.
Yeah, dude, that was the first time we got to get into the ocean, and the reviews on that, I think by far, that was one of the fan favorites of that class. But
Yeah.
dude, the 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 testimonials just speak for themselves, right? Like every
Right.
single
Exactly.
person that goes through that class, it speaks for themselves. So what I would tell you is, if there's anybody out there that's got a young man, and they could do it like you did it, Nick, with your nephew, right? You don't
Yep.
even have to be the father necessarily. You can be somebody who's influential in a young man's life, and you can bring him through this program, and really just start teaching them the success habits, and something that I wish I would have had when I was a young
Same.
man. I
Same.
wish I would have had that kind of mentorship and
Yeah.
intentionality around learning these things early
You,
on.
you know what's really cool, and you said it with the uncles, but you know what's really cool about this community is if you're a single mom out there, and you've got a situation like you discussed with yourself, and
Mhm.
but you have a son that you like, I think he would benefit from this. We have an entire community of men
Oh yeah,
that will raise their hand and will go with them, and will
totally.
be
Yeah,
be the surrogate uncle, surrogate dad, so that your young man can go through this program, and literally
yeah, dude.
be like right there with him. When I went through, the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, Bryce, went
Hmm.
through was a
Yep.
surrogate dad for one of their
Yep.
employees' sons,
Hmm.
um, which was just absolutely rad. So like, how cool is it that not only do we have this, but then you have this community of men that are like, no, I'll be that guy, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, to me,
Totally.
that's just
And what a
amazing.
gift to those. And that is a gift both ways. And you could probably
Yeah.
speak to it from your own perspective, being that surrogate. But the to these young men, to know that somebody cares about them enough to take them through,
Right.
and whether it's the father, or it's a stand-in, but to know that they were cared enough, that somebody took the time to plan this thing out, and to
Mhm.
travel with them to wherever it is, and to go through the experience, and just be that person in their life, during this 12 to 14 hour
I mean,
experience. Um,
what would that have been for you for at 13 years old if some high value man stepped in and said, "We're going to do this together and we're going to be a team"?
yeah,
At
I can
13
only
years old,
imagine,
that
man.
can
Yeah,
only imagine,
I can
right?
only imagine. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So
I can only
if you
imagine.
got an 11, was 11 to 16, 11 to 16
Yeah,
year old, then
yeah.
then check out the Squire program. I think it's squireprogram.com, right? I think
Yes.
so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and they got another one coming up in couple weeks in
Yeah,
January.
we have a few coming up in 2023. It's sometime, I don't remember the exact dates in January, but
Oh,
um,
I know what I'm going to bring up about this. The money. So I get some comments too about like, oh, you're just guys are just doing this for money. I'll tell you this, from this is my point of view, and I don't know how much you know about this. So I ran one Esquire program here in November 5th, 2022. And after it was all said and done, after everything was paid for, I I lost money on it.
yeah,
I lost
yeah,
$500. I
yeah,
lost $500 on the Squire program. Running the Squire program, I was in the hole $500. And
yeah.
now it actually made 400, which we gave to the person who like basically helped orchestrate it, like our customer service
Mm-hmm.
person who did all the logistics and running around and setting up in the background and everything
Hmm.
on our side.
Hmm.
But there was a Marine Raider who wanted to go through in his son, so we sponsored him.
Hmm.
Um, Me and Matt Bardew from the Apogee Academy split the cost,
Hmm.
and we sponsored him. So with
Hmm.
that $400, I think it was $900 or $950. I think I spent to sponsor this raider, and then I got 400 back, which I just gave to her. So I was in the hole. So for all those people say that
Hmm.
it's a big money grab, it's not a money grab. It is definitely, I would say, a passion project. Wouldn't you say?
Totally,
when
totally,
it
man.
comes to
Yeah,
the
totally.
when it comes to the money side.
Yeah, dude. And truth be told, Nick, since we started this, I think we're in class what, 14,
Something like that.
13
Yeah, I
or
think the
14
last one.
classes somewhere around
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I haven't been paid. Like I don't get paid to do it. I don't do it for the pay, right?
Right.
Like you want to talk about a passion project. Like this is not something I do to collect a paycheck. We charge what we need to hopefully break
To make it
even
happen.
uh,
Yeah, to make it
to
happen.
make it happen
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make it happen. But we're willing to take a loss at it, right? Like we like
Right.
just like you did, and and but that's the benefit of us having other successful businesses and being the kind of entrepreneurs that that allow for us to do these kinds of passion projects. But make no mistake about it, the it is not a money grab. This is something that
No.
it costs a lot of money to put on, and you'd be amazed at how much just the insurance alone is to do it. But um, the reality is that no matter what the cost is, the ROI for it
Hmm.
in the most important significant areas of your life in this young man's life is is just incredible. You
Yeah.
know
Well,
the
that's the reason why it's like you're changing. We are slowly, like, at the end of the day, adults are adults, and can they be helped?
Mhm.
Can guys like you and me, if we take extreme ownership of our life, can we change our life and make more money and become, the men that we want to become and we need to become? Yes, but the real work is in the youth, and if we can start
Totally.
affecting these young men now, you will, and if this thing continues to grow the way that it's growing, we will change the landscape of this country.
Totally. Yeah, man,
And
there's a lot of
that is,
adversaries out there.
yeah, exactly.
Our kids are, different than when you and I went to school. Dude,
Yeah,
we could escape so many of the pressures of being a young man, right? Like
yeah,
if there were problems at school, there was bullying at schools, there was conflict at schools, like we used to be able to go home and get away from it. These kids, they can't do it these days because of social media and cell phones, and they have this constant exposure to things.
yep.
You have parents that are working, uh, in ways that they haven't had to work before because of the cost is more than it's ever been. Um, you know, and unfortunately, these young men they're growing up in environments to where they have just a completely different sense of pressure. They're being
And
they're
influence.
being
Yeah, and
right. They're being
influence. Yeah,
influenced. Look at TikTok, for example. I mean, TikTok is um, like we know that it's a Chinese-based company, and the content that our kids are exposed to and that comes across in the United States on TikTok is not the same as what the youth are exposed to in China. It is not the
right.
same. Everything in the United States is silly. It's drama ridden. It is it's they're laughing at stupid stuff. Like it's just nonsense that's on there.
It's
And
it's force propaganda, essentially, to get them to think a certain way.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, you look at
yeah.
what the kids over in China are getting. It's all about academia. It's all
Hmm.
about progression. It's all about business. It's all about it's they're spoon feeding our youth through the algorithms
Garbage.
and
Yeah,
they're just garbage, dude. It's just garbage.
garbage.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we need to take an extreme amount pay an extreme amount of attention to these kids, pointing to these kids to get them to be um, to fight all the garbage that's
yeah,
out there, all the propaganda that's out there,
yeah.
all of the influence out there that's working against them becoming the very best
This
versions of themselves.
this is us as men seeing this, going on the offensive.
Right,
That's what
right.
that is.
So
We're going on the
so pay the
offensive.
cost of admission, pay the
Yeah.
cost of admission, and start getting these kids on the right track and getting them exposed to success habits and successful people and others that are driven to dominate life. And
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 here's the reason.
don't worry about.
Here's the reason why I'm willing to go on the whole on. I'd be willing to go on the whole on every single project, or not project, every single Squire program, because when I'm 80, what kind of country do I want to live in? What kind of grown men do I want to have running around the country holding it up?
Right. Right. Yeah, dude. I
I'm
look at the
essentially making
military.
a
I look at law enforcement. I look at,
yeah.
the community leaders. Yeah, man. Like, what do we? Based on the what we're seeing as far as emotional intelligence and people being triggered at everything, and not taking the time to actually educate themselves on things before they get this very passionate opinion on one
Right.
side or the other, whatever. It's a really troubling thing to think about, um, what this country will look like when you and I are well past our days of our prime, and we're reliant on today's youth to guide us in the right direction. Um, it's something that we should be taking a massive amount of ownership on and influencing, as much as possible.
Well, sir, I appreciate you doing your part. That's for sure.
Yeah, man.
So,
Same here,
Matt,
dude. Same to you.
where can people find you? Where's your stuff at?
Dude, social. Go to Matt Schneider underscore official is probably
Okay.
the best way. They wanted the more information on the coaching. They go to ignitionyourcoaching.com. They can see it there. But all the links are in social. Love to
Yeah,
connect with
we'll put them in the
anybody and
show.
everybody.
We'll put them in the show notes as
Yeah,
well. We'll put all your
yeah,
links in the
dude.
show notes. But dude, hey, I appreciate you hanging out with me and sharing. This was great. And if you're listening to this and you just created some New Year's resolutions, just throw those things out the door and call them objectives and build yourself a fucking plan.
That's right. That's right. And
That's right.
execute.
And execute.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, all right, Matt, thank you so much, man. And hey, guys, go tag Matt, tag myself, tag Always Forward, and then share this information with a friend. And then if you're interested in the Squire program or Matt's coaching, the links are below. And go execute. All right. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next episode.